Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Okay, I'll hold this. Good afternoon, and welcome to our first annual EHD Double Take. I'm really excited to see everyone. So excited for the event. So for those of you who've seen me in the hallway in the past 2 days, you know I'm so excited to be here. A little nervous about being a speaker, but really excited to share my story and just for the sense of community. So the history of Double Take is that it actually started at Harvard. So our very own President Jim Ryan was at Harvard as the Dean of the College of Education. And he wanted to do an event that kind of humanized his colleagues, where you could get together and share personal stories, not academic stories, but personal stories, to get to know each other and build a sense of community. So when President Ryan arrived here at UVA, he thought he would bring that same program here. And so he started EHD Double Take at his inauguration. So even before he was fully the president, he had 115 different people who submitted stories that they wanted to share with their friends and colleagues at the university. I think they chose 7. But these stories were from all kinds of angles. They talked about things like integration or people's cultural identities, people's immigration histories, and the like. And it was a huge hit, and so we've been doing Double Take here at UVA. Has anybody else been to Double Take, the UVA-wide Double Take? So it is my absolute favorite thing to do every single year. You get together 6 or 7 or 8 speakers, and they just share a little nugget of a story, and it's really special. And I think for me, it really inspires empathy and a sense of unity and really a sense of connection. So I've actually made new friends from some of the speakers as we've connected over their stories over the years. So I think it's a really special thing. So President Ryan this year, had this idea that the schools could do their own Double Take. And when he asked the deans if we wanted to do this, people jumped right in. So data science has already done theirs, nursing will do one, and I was super excited to do a Double Take here at EHD, and so here we are. Did want to thank a few people. So first wanted to thank President Ryan for the co-sponsorship, and also Matt Weber. So Matt couldn't be here today, but Matt is one of our most extraordinary students. He is also the Chief Creative Officer to the President and the Senior Advisor to the President, and an EHD student, which is pretty cool. So Matt is also our sort of storyteller coach, so he helped to prepare for all of us. Also wanted to thank Brooke Pucci in particular, who really had the vision for the comfortable sort of living room feel, and for just supporting the effort and all of the things in the background, as well as Troy Buer and our incredible Office of Communications and Marketing, who helped tremendously as well. So that's Tiffany Tolson, Laura Hawksworth, and Julia Parlett-Carino. And so we have our 7 storytellers. So each story will be about 7 minutes. And we are going to start off with Jim Carlisle.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jim Carlisle. I am a 3rd-year YSI student, and I'm also a U.S. veteran, lifelong learner, avid thinker, amongst other things. So when I was asked if I wanted to do this, I said, yeah, I'll do it. No problems. I speak all the time. And then the second thought was, can I really do this? And so I had a story I was going to tell you guys and try to wow you, talk about my mental health status and how I got here. But then as it went on, February went on, and it's March, I started thinking about why I'm here for real. So I remember working at Lowe's as a department manager, and I tried to go to Nova, and this was 2010, and my boss, he was like, if you take classes, you're gonna have to quit. And I was like, what? So you telling me that I can't like get myself better, like try to get myself in a better position by going back to school? Like this, it doesn't make sense. I have to work 40 hours, 60 hours a week, and I'm not making enough money, and you're telling me I can't better myself. And then I thought about the words of the Declaration of Independence. It says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that every man is created equal. And it's the three things that every man is guaranteed: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I started thinking about that, and I was like, where's my pursuit of happiness? Where's my liberty? Where is this for me, in this whole big picture? You just want me to work and like be here, and that's it. You just want me to work to whatever. I'm not going anywhere. You're not going nowhere, so you just want me to work. And then I understood that, I began to understand that the pursuit of happiness is sacrifice. I've already sacrificed a lot of things in my life, but I had never done it to the point where it was like unwillingly. I willingly joined the Air Force. I was ready to go to the Air Force 9/11/2001. I was in the 10th grade, and I was in my colonel's office, and I thought he was playing a video game. I was like, you playing a video game? He was like, no, that is real time. And then I made the decision that day that I was going to the military. 3 years later, I signed up. Off I went. But those are sacrifices that I was willing to give. The sacrifices I wasn't willing to give is like comfortability and having stability and a home and things of that nature. So my pursuit of happiness was trying to find a position to where I could go to the next step. I could go to the next level. So I spent my late 20s in so many different jobs and failing at so many different things, like horribly. I couldn't even back up a truck. I went to truck driving school. I could drive it forward pretty good. But backing up, that became a problem. I hit a fence, I hit cones. My instructor was like, man, maybe this is not for you. And I was like, but I put so much into this. I had saved all my money, and I was like, I have no more money left. What am I gonna do, right? And so I left truck driving school. I went back home to Georgia, to my dad's house. And my dad was like, yeah, you're gonna fail at stuff. I don't know why you can't back up a truck, but that's kind of like easy stuff. But he was like, he told me something that was something very profound to me, and I never lost it. He was like, you always have to keep that wheel moving, right? And the wheel is your pursuit of having a job, having an income, having something for yourself, always going. And once you have a clog in that wheel, you have to have a perseverance to figure out what you're gonna do next. That wheel has to keep moving. And that's always stuck with me. And it's still here to this day. That's the reason why I'm here. So I think that in that, excuse me, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second. After truck driving school, I became a logistics coordinator for a company. It's like being an air traffic controller, but not really. And I was working 80, 90 hours a week, traveling 110 miles to go from King George, Virginia to Chantilly, Virginia every day. And after a while, I was like, this is not what life is supposed to be like. I can't exercise. I get home 14 hours later. So I decided to go on hiatus. I bought a truck, bought a trailer, and moved to California just off a whim. It was there that I figured out that I wanted to go back to school, that I needed to go back to school. And after some life things happened, I came back and I went to ECPI first. And I was like, I'm gonna be an electrical engineer. That didn't work either. It didn't work because the job that they wanted me to get after I graduated, after paying $75,000 for a bachelor's degree, they were gonna pay me $50,000 a year. And I was like, no way. So I decided to become a Lyft driver. And I also started my own business at that time, which was like, I went to daycare centers and I was a handyman. So I was still working 16 hours a day, and I was trying to figure out what I needed to do until COVID hit, and then I said, okay, I'm going back to school, and I've been in school ever since. So I guess the gist of my story is always let that wheel continue moving, and the pursuit of happiness and the pursuit of having liberty is you doing something. You're going to have to sacrifice something. So always pursue your happiness, okay? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Katie Lee. I am the undergraduate degree director for teacher education. So I found it only fitting that my story would be telling you about the classroom that almost made me quit my teacher ed program. So I knew I wanted to be a teacher since I was little tiny. My grandmother was the first kindergarten teacher in her town. My mom is trained as a German teacher. I was the one that was teaching to the animals and the stuffed animals in the basement of my grandmother's home. So I knew that this was going to be what I was going to do. And so I grew up in a small farming town in the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin, went to TCU for my undergrad. So I left home, went 1,000 miles away to go to school, declared myself as an elementary education major and knew that was my path. So similar to what we have here, our students, so I was able to do a practicum experience. I was in a class with about 100 or 150 people. They put us out in schools so that we could observe, make sure this was really what we wanted to do, and then come back and debrief. So I went to the school and I went to the first class, and I will my retelling is based on my 18-year-old self remembering. What I remember and what stuck with me was I left thinking that teacher did everything but hit a child. Books were slammed on tables, things were thrown at children. It broke what my understanding of being a teacher was. And so I got in the car and I was like, all right, that's it, I'm done. If that is what a teacher is, I do not want to be that. So I decided that day I would change my major, that was it. So I called my mom, my grandmother was alive at the time, talked to the two of them. They told me to just take a beat, don't quit yet. And my grandmother was able to talk with me about just the complexity of teaching. I didn't know that teacher, I didn't know the circumstances, I didn't know the classroom, anything. So I needed to take a step, go back, try it again, and see what I would do. So I went back the next week. I actually went to the classroom immediately next door and had a completely different experience. So a kid greeted me at the door and welcomed me to the classroom and told me what they're doing, which now as a teacher, I know which kid was assigned to do that because it was very welcoming. And so I was there, I was able to be a part of that classroom and observe, and it was so different. And I decided, okay, I am gonna stick with this profession. So fast forward 4 years, I'm graduating from TCU without a job. It was a really good hit to my ego because I assumed that I should have a job by the time I graduated. I didn't. I moved back to Wisconsin. I was actually living at a summer camp in the middle of nowhere without a job, didn't know what I was gonna be doing. The camp office received a phone call, and it was from a mentor of mine at TCU who had contacted someone about a potential job. And so I got that information on Monday. I flew back to Fort Worth, Texas on Wednesday. I interviewed for the job on Thursday, got offered the job in the moment, felt like it was where I was supposed to be, flew back on Friday. So it happened quickly. I knew that it was the space that I was supposed to be in. And so I finished out the summer in Wisconsin. I was able to prepare myself mentally for becoming a teacher. And I went to this school, and when I got there, I got to meet Chip Haro, who I will never forget. He's since become a Apple Award winning teacher in the school district where I taught. He was my team lead. He would become a mentor and an amazing friend. And he was gonna show me around the school. And so we were walking through, and I sort of had this moment of kind of deja vu, but I wasn't really sure because I was overwhelmed and I wasn't totally sure how to navigate all of those feelings. And so we're walking through the halls and he's showing me everything, and then he says, let's go see your classroom. And so we turned down this hallway, and that feeling of deja vu, just I couldn't shake it. And so as I'm walking down the classroom and he says, this classroom ahead of you is your classroom, I realize that the classroom that almost made me quit teaching would be my first classroom. So that's my story.
Hello. Oh, Hi, everybody. My name is Moira Johnson, and I am a project manager in Castle, right across the way. So my story is a bit of a different tenor. You said we could talk about anything, right? All right. So my daughter Isla, here we go. My daughter Isla died when she was 4.5 months old. She spent all but 5 days of her life in the Children's Medical Center in Dallas, Texas. My husband and I knew that she was going to have a congenital heart defect, and she was there her whole life receiving treatment. At the time, we lived in a really small town in northeast Texas, and we were surrounded by people that were lovely, great community. We had colleagues, we had friends, we had coworkers, but nobody really knew what to say. It's a really terrible thing to go through. And I'll tell you, the first few months were really, really rough. I remember going to the grocery store and just being completely overwhelmed with emotion, like upset, furious, resentful, angry, hurt, that everyone around me could just buy a box of cereal and go on with their life as if the world just hadn't shattered, And we got a lot of advice from people and a lot of platitudes, and it's hard to know what to say. A lot of people just said, "Hey, I'm so sorry for your loss." A lot of people said, "I'll pray for you." And one person told me in particular, "Time's going to heal this for you." And that was the one I took to heart. I thought, if I let enough time go by, I'll just kind of let it work its way out. And so I didn't really have the coping skills to deal with something like that. And I dove back into my work. I was working on my dissertation at the time, and I had shelved it for the duration of her life. And so I picked it up and I said, I'm going to finish this in the next 12 months. And I picked it up and jumped back into work. And about a year later, hadn't made a lot of progress. But I got on a plane and I went to a conference to present about a wellness program that I was running. And I met 2 women that changed my life. I remember getting on the plane, and first I had the worst seat, like the one in between 2 strangers. And so I sat down in between these 2 women. There was a lady on my left by the window, a lady to my right by the aisle. And I sat down, the plane took off, I opened up my laptop and I started kind of reviewing my presentation. And the lady to my left took an interest in what I was doing, and she was very kind, and she started asking me questions, not in a nosy way, but in an interested way of, the topic of my stuff, and very friendly. And so we started talking, and then a few minutes into the conversation, she asked about my life and asked if I was married, if I had kids. And she might have been the first stranger that didn't know what had happened that had asked me that question. But there was something about the way that she was talking to me that I felt comfortable. And so I said, yes, I have a daughter, but she actually passed away a year ago. And she leaned into me and she said, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry for your loss. And then she started asking me questions about her. She asked me her name, asked me to see pictures of her, asked what types of things she would do, and all this wonderful stuff. And so, we started having this amazing conversation, and this little door kind of got cracked open, where I got this glimpse of, wow, this can be really healing, right? To share my story with somebody who just knows the right questions to ask. And we were about 20 minutes into this great, loving conversation, and I'm starting to fly like a bird and feel really great. And then the lady to my right leans in and says, hey, this conversation is really disturbing. I hope you guys will stop. I don't want to hear it anymore. And I was very taken aback, and I said, oh my gosh, what's going on? And she said, I lost a child 30 years ago under similar circumstances. And I know it's a free country, but I don't want to hear anything else about your experience. And she settled back into her seat and closed her eyes. And I kind of looked at the lady to my left and I was like, what's going on? And she she just kind of maternally patted my hand and kind of closed her eyes. And the next 3 hours were complete freaking agony. Stuck on that plane between these two women. I felt like I had just plowed into like a cement barrier, right? I had come to this T intersection where I really felt that on one side I had gotten this glimpse into this world of like what my life might look like if I could heal, if I could share my story, if I could talk to people about it. And then on the other side, maybe what could happen if I just did nothing and let time take its course. And it was really, really life-changing for me. And so you can tell which path I took. And I find that, you know, most people have not been through that experience. It feels very isolating. And most people don't know what to say. And if you're in but everyone experiences grief, right? So if you're experiencing grief, I urge you, please share it with somebody. It will be halved if you share it. If you're in a situation where you're with someone and you don't know what to say, just ask questions and listen for their story and ask to see pictures. That was great. Right now, I have 3 healthy boys, and our daughter is part of our life. We celebrate her birthday. She has a stocking on the mantle at Christmas, and we have pictures of her all over her house. And her little brothers know who their big sister is, and I'm so grateful for both of those women for sharing their story with me, and to you guys for listening to mine. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'm Stephanie Rowley, the dean. And I thought I would share a story about my time when I was here as a graduate student here at UVA. So the year was 1995, so it was February 22nd, 1995. And I got a call that my favorite uncle had passed away. So my Uncle Denny, so this is so interesting that this was 30 years ago, and previous story has me feeling emotional. But so my Uncle Denny was our favorite uncle. So we called him our Uncle-y uncle, because he was the guy who would like put you on his shoulders and play tickle monster. And he was strong and handsome. And he was a black belt in Taekwondo. He could actually break 8 cinder block bricks with his single hand. It was so cool. And he was actually at a Taekwondo exhibition when he died. He had a massive heart attack and died instantly. And I was just absolutely devastated. So I had this new boyfriend, Larry, and so I called him up. We'd only been dating a couple weeks, and I was like, well, I wanted to share this thing that had happened. And he was so sweet and supportive. So I went to Uncle Denny's funeral in Pennsylvania, and when I got back, I wasn't feeling super well. You know, little bug, like sniffles or whatever. But then I noticed like a week later, I wasn't feeling better. The sniffles were gone, but I was super tired, and I wasn't eating. I had no appetite. So I went to Student Health and Wellness, and the doctor said, oh, we see this in girls your age sometimes. If you haven't eaten in a week, come on back and see me again. Okay. So I went home for a week, and I still didn't eat, and so I went back to Student Health and Wellness, to a different doctor this time, who actually did some tests and said, well, it looks like maybe because of the stress of your uncle's death, your body's having an autoimmune reaction to the virus. And so my body just didn't settle down after I had the little bug. And she said, you know, these things usually resolve themselves, and so we'll just monitor. So I said, okay. So then a couple weeks later, I went to California to a conference, still not eating, still not feeling better. Why was I at a conference? And I got to the hotel after this long flight, and I saw that my legs were covered with red spots, like little tiny bruises. And so I called my boyfriend, Larry, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what's happening, but I've got these red spots all over my legs. Called my mom. She said, you know, go home, go to the doctor. So this time I went to an actual hematologist here at UVA Hospital and the Cancer Center, which was scary. And they did a bunch of tests. I mean, vials and vials and vials of blood. and they were all negative. And I went back every week for months, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And so, because we didn't have a diagnosis, they also had no treatment. And by then, my symptoms were getting worse and worse. So I had so much joint pain that I couldn't stand. I couldn't screw the lid off a peanut butter jar. I had brain fog. I had to withdraw from all of my classes, including my multivariate statistics class, which was truly heartbreaking. And really the only thing that helped me to feel better was my boyfriend, Larry. And we would sit on the couch and he would rub my hand or rub my hair and talk to me. And I was just absolutely terrified. So then the doctor called one day and said, one of the tests came back positive. It looks like you've got some sort of infection around your heart. And we're gonna admit you to the hospital. I've called your parents and they're coming down. So my parents showed up. What I didn't know then was that they had already told my parents to get my siblings ready to test to see if they could be a match for a bone marrow transplant, because clearly my white blood count was so low, platelet count was so low, so the rash on my legs was really that my blood wasn't clotting. And so my mom didn't tell me this literally until about 5 years ago. And so really scary. Turns out that was all false alarm, false positive. They sent me home the next day. So I still didn't know what was going on. But at least that had gotten more doctors engaged. And so one of the doctors said, could be this rare childhood disorder called HSP that you don't really see in adults, but that might be it. So it turns out that that's what it was. So I had an answer. And almost miraculously, once we had the answer, I started to feel better. So this was like the 4-month point at this point that I had been sick. And it took me about 2 months after that to really get back to the point where I felt like myself. But I did feel like myself, so much so that my boyfriend, Larry, asked me to marry him. So this was September. And we got married in December of 1995, so almost exactly 30 years ago now. So I learned 3 things from that experience. The first thing that I learned was how to spot HSP. And so sadly, though, it was my little boy who came home one day. He was 6 years old, and he said, "Mommy, when I run, my legs hurt." And Larry and I saw the little rash, the red spots on his arm. So we knew what to tell the doctor. He's fine, he's 26. The second thing I learned was about grief, really, and how it can really inhabit your body. It changes the way we function, and it really needs to be addressed and acknowledged. And then the third thing that I learned was really that when things for me are really frightening and uncertain, like today, that I can lean on my faith and my family and my friends, and you guessed it, my boyfriend Larry.
Thank you. Oh gosh, hello. Is this on? Yep, hello. Hi everyone, good afternoon. My name is Danielle Moore-Lewis. I am born and raised in Kingston, Jamaica. I am Michelle and Everton Lewis's firstborn daughter. I am a proud big sister to Christopher and Ash Lewis, and I'm also a PhD student here, that's fine too. I'm a 4th year PhD student in the higher ed department, submitting my dissertation materials tomorrow, and defending on the 31st, so at the end of the month, so lots going on. And so what I want to tell you guys a story about today is the lesson that I learned from my mom about plants and talking to plants. And so if you know my mom, she talks to plants. And if you let her tell this story, she will say that they absolutely talk back. Okay? And, and in 33 years of most of it ignoring my mother, I've come to the point now where I'm like, you're right. Plants do talk to us. They tell us things, a lot about things, mostly about their environment. And so it is no surprise that I study college environments, and this is because of the lesson that I learned from my mom about listening to plants. And so growing up in Jamaica, my mom would drive us around. You know, it's a very mountainous island, so there are trees and different flora and fauna everywhere. And she'd look out the window and she'd say, "Oh, Lou." And this is not hyperbolic. My mom sounds like a Muppet, like mixed with like a Shakespearean writer. It's giving Sesame Street on Shakespeare, right? So she'd say, "Oh, Lou, look at the trees. Oh, the stories they would tell." And there's been an eye roll or two or three. Look, raising a Leo Jamaican girl must have been difficult as a teenager. So like, shout out to mom and dad for thugging it out. Y'all did it. But in the midst of those eye rolls, you're like, what is this lady talking about? And she would say, "Oh, well, this tree has been here and we don't know how long and we don't know what she's seen, but just think of the stories she could tell about her environment if she could speak." All right, lady. So 14 years ago, when I left my home in Kingston, Jamaica, my family and everything that I knew to embark on this journey of higher education, my family and I walked on to Randolph College's campus in Lynchburg, Virginia, about an hour away from here. It was a scary time. It's a new country, and the city is called Lynchburg, Virginia. Okay. And so obviously parents are a little bit nervous. Where are we leaving our firstborn child? This is the first child to go to college, the first child to go to college in the United States. There's a lot happening. So she walks on our campus and there is a big tree on front campus that she walked on campus and she said, "You're gonna be okay." And I'm like, well, I hope so. But where is this coming from? And she said, "That tree just told me you're gonna be all right." Again, rolled my eyes because, lady, what are you talking about? But 14 years later, she was right. That was the perfect environment for her firstborn child. It was a small community of faculty and staff who saw me and knew me. I made friends. I found love. I found myself many a times over. And so 14 years since that environment, I give it up to my mom and that tree, and I'm like, you're right. I was okay. And so now, 4 years ago, I'm applying to doctoral programs yet again, about to do it again. And my mom is concerned because she's like, I'm not going to be able to come to find a tree to talk to tell me that you're going to be okay. What are we going to do? And I was like, I don't know what to tell you. So she says, I have a great idea. I did some Googling, and it turns out that pineapples have the same length of time from planting them to their being a fruit as your doctoral program. So I'm going to, in my garden at home, plant a bunch of pineapples, and we'll just see what happens. And I'm like, well, that's a little frightening, because what if they don't make it? Like, what if the pineapples don't make it? And some of them did not make it. But the lesson that I learned from the very first tree she picked out, who said that her kid was going to be okay, to the crop of pineapples that are now 4 years in the making, is that environment really matters. And what my mom meant when she says things like, trees talk to us, is they're telling us about their environment. They're telling us about their conditions. If they're not getting too much sun, they'll tell you. If they're getting too much sun, they'll tell you. If you're not watering them enough, they'll tell you. If it's too cloudy, whatever it is, trees and plants communicate to us how they are experiencing their environment. And I've now taken this lesson to extend beyond trees. I am a researcher and a soon-to-be practitioner who studies college campuses as an environment and feels very privileged to be able to enter into spaces to make change to environment and support other little trees and little pineapples as they're navigating through their journey too. And so what I really want to leave with us all here, as we're in our School of Education, as we're in this space, is to be mindful of your environment. I think sometimes we get a bunch of seeds, and sure, maybe a few of them in the packet may be rotten, and so they'll never bear fruit. But I think if we blame seeds for not fruiting on themselves, we're missing a piece of the picture. Maybe you just didn't plant it where it was meant to flourish. Maybe you didn't listen to it. Maybe you couldn't see the signs of what it looked like when you have a seed or a fruit or a flower in an environment that's not conducive to their flourishing. And so as I'm here now as a scholar and practitioner and getting ready to support students in their own environments, I really do thank my mom. Lady, you were right. Like trees, they do speak to us, and I've learned so much about environments since. I study them, and I'm so excited to be able to be in environments like this one. Every environment that we're in, we take up our space and we change it, whether we know it or not. We change it with the way that we occupy the space, with the things that we say, with the community and the friends that we make. And so what I'll leave everyone here with is just be mindful of the environments that you're in. Be mindful of the environments that you have the opportunity to change. And if you're working with your students or your colleagues or your friends and they may not be thriving, instead of pointing the finger and saying, hey, you're not doing great, or you could be doing better, maybe let's all take a step back and ask ourselves, is this an environment that is conducive to their thriving? And do I play a role in creating such an environment for the people in my life? Thank you.
Hello, I'm Emily Madrak. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Kinesiology. And before I'm a professor, I'm an athletic trainer. And for those of you that don't know what an athletic trainer is, we're the ones that run out on the field when someone keels over and, breaks their leg or something like that. But besides that, we can care for, prevent, rehabilitate injuries that are acute, chronic, or emergent, and other non-orthopedic conditions. It often involves long hours of caring for our patients, often more than we care for ourselves. We're not just water girls, and we don't just tape ankles. It's so much more than that. For many, the inspiration to become an athletic trainer is usually derived from an injury they had in high school. This really wasn't the case for me. I just kind of wanted to be one. But the reason why I'm talking today is to talk about my inspiration for why I got my PhD. That was derived from some of my experiences as an athletic trainer. And one of those experiences was having an eating disorder. So this is my story of how my pain became my passion. So I grew up in a household that valued hard work. My family has a Polish heritage, and if you know anything about Eastern European culture, well, they're not from Poland, but my great-grandmother was. But anyway, it's put your head down, go to work, don't complain. So that's what I grew up with. I'm also a first-generation student, so my parents didn't go to college. So the first thing I probably heard when I came out of the womb was, you're going to college. And I heard that all throughout my childhood. And for me, that meant getting good grades, working hard, and that also kind of resulted in a little bit of perfectionism, which is one of the main traits of anorexia nervosa, which is what I dealt with as an athletic training student. Anyway, growing up, my parents never said anything bad about my body. I was athletic, played 3 sports. I wasn't underweight or overweight by any means. I was average. My mom was your typical 90s mom who bought reduced fat everything and commented about what other people ate, not me. My dad was that person that commented on other people's bodies, but never mine. So I didn't have this complex yet. But your typical teenage girl, of course, I compared myself to my peers and the media. But I didn't have these idiosyncrasies of anorexia at this time. I did develop depression in high school because, I put my head down and did work, so I didn't cope well. Towards the end of high school, I heard this, you don't want to gain the freshman 15. I'm sure many of us have heard this in our lives, and I took that to heart. I didn't want to gain the freshman 15, and I didn't. My first 2 years of college, I was pretty healthy. I maintained my weight. I ate normally. Things were great, but athletic training programs are very, very rigorous. So within my 3rd year of school, I was stressed. So I just put my head down and went to work and didn't think about anything else except trying to pass my exams because they were tough. It was also during this time I, for some reason, thought I needed to be thinner, which I didn't. But I began counting my calories and training for races. I saw great results with this, and this further fueled my obsession. So soon I was having more symptoms of anorexia, like I was the obsessive calorie counting. I weighed myself every day. I avoided social situations that involved food so people didn't have to see how little I ate. Also with this, the perfectionism was there. I was depressed, I was anxious, I was lethargic because I wasn't getting in enough food. And I continued with this until the end of that semester. When I went home, I thought my parents were watching me. I don't think they had any idea what was going on when I look back, but I felt like they were watching me, so I couldn't keep up with the charade. When I returned for that spring semester, I thought I was healed. Yeah, right. But anyway, I continued this charade for years and years, and it wasn't until my third year out of undergrad, so it was my second year working as a collegiate athletic trainer, that I was really hitting rock bottom with my mental state. I was having suicidal ideation, and I decided enough was enough. I went to therapy to try and help the depression. Again, I thought I was healed from this eating disorder, but it's something that kind of sticks with you for the rest of your life. You never look at food the same way. So anyway, I was feeling a lot better by going to therapy. Turns out it really does work for all you naysayers. Anyway, when I was starting to feel better, I'm like, all right, I'm realizing like this eating disorder isn't like just healed. So I want to really try, and I'm sick of dealing with this. So I called up one of my mentors, who was one of my professors from undergrad. In her class, Psychosocial Issues and Athletic Training, she always had guest speakers come in and talk about their experiences and how they related to athletic training in a psychological aspect. I told her about my story. She had no idea. So I asked her if I could talk in her class one day, and she said, sure, because I was only about an hour away from my undergrad with where I worked. So that first time I talked in her class, it was incredibly difficult. I almost cracked in the middle and broke down crying, but I made it through, and I was so proud of myself, and I felt this incredibly therapeutic and beneficial effect at the end. From there, I got emails from my professor from the students in the class saying, like, thank you so much for sharing this. It makes me feel not so alone. I thought I was the only one that experienced something like this as a healthcare provider, because you would think I have the knowledge to not let something happen like this. But it's easier to slip than you think. And since then, I've talked to this class every year, and I've done this for the past 9 years. So it's really been healing for me, but it really helps out others. My fourth year out of undergrad, I was working as a mental health liaison at my school I was at. I worked with athletics, student health, and psychological services to help students with eating disorders. It felt like really good work, and I felt like fulfilled. However, I felt I needed a little bit more challenge in the athletic training side of things, so I started applying to PhD programs. I got into Oklahoma State and was a teaching assistant for their Masters of Athletic Training program there. I thought I was going to study eating disorders in athletes, and I was ready to do that up until my committee proposal, and then like a week before, I was researching different things about athletic trainers, and I came across what's called the patient promise. And this is a commitment that healthcare providers make to their patients to practice the same behaviors that they educate them on to be healthy. And I looked at this at athletic trainers, and I'm like, I don't see this, but I know athletic trainers are unhealthy. I know I'm not the only one that has dealt with an eating disorder in athletic training. I wonder what our other behaviors are like. So that's what turned into my dissertation. I looked at BMI, physical activity, disordered eating, diet, and workability in athletic trainers. Turns out our BMI is a little bit higher, but 77% of us do meet the physical activity guidelines. And if anybody has dieted at least one point in their life as an athletic trainer, they're more likely to have disordered eating. come up in their life. So I felt really validated in these results. Though my manuscripts for my dissertation are still under review, I just graduated 4 years ago, my commitment remains the same of helping athletic trainers become a healthier profession, because in turn it will help their patients. And what I will leave you with today is be kind to yourself. You never know who is watching or listening. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm Stan Trent, for those who don't know me, and I've been here in the CISE program for 27 years. And I have a lot of stories I could tell about this place, but I will not do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you something that's very personal to me, and it's about relationships, the relationship that I had with my father. So it's summer 1969. I'm 12 years old, and my dad comes to my bedroom door, and he knocks on my door at 6:30 a.m. I think, because I know what he's going to say. Stanley, I'm leaving here in about 45 minutes, so if you're going with me, you need to get up now and get ready. My dad, James Richard Cornelius Trent, is doing what he always does during his vacation, working his part-time gig. So, today, he is replacing the rotten plywood planks underneath the overhangs of Cousin Ida Mae's roof. And I've been his carpenter's helper for almost 2 weeks. So we get there at around 7:30 a.m. and we leave around 4. So I'm in my bed, and I am thinking, do you get up and go with this man, or do you keep your butt in this bed and cop some more Z's? And then I start thinking about what is gonna happen on this day. The hot sun, the humidity, the sweat rolling down my face, down my back, down my whole body. And I just think, bump this, I'm going back to sleep. But then I remember why I was doing this in the first place. One day at Matoka Junior High School, I was walking to my homeroom class, minding my own business, when I hear this snicker behind me. And I know it's the snicker of Wayne Sampson, one of the biggest bullies in the school. And I know what he's laughing at. He's laughing at my Bobos, my cheap Bobo sneakers that my mom bought me from the bargain barn, the friggin' bargain barn. So he says, look, y'all, his friends, look, y'all, look at them cheap, ugly Bobos Trent got on his feet. Then he rallies them up close to me, and they sing the dreaded song. Bobos, they make your feet feel fine, Bobos. They cost $1.99, Bobos. They're made by hobos, so get your Bobos from Lobos today. Then they give each other high fives and low fives, and then they go off to their homerooms, and I walk to my homeroom, the few steps that I have to get to my homeroom, and I'm looking at the floor, and I just want the floor to open up and swallow me whole. I'm so embarrassed. So I need that money. I need every cent, every dime of what I can make with my father. So I decide that I'm gonna get up and go with him to Cousin Ida Mae's house, because I am not gonna start school in the fall wearing a pair of cheap Bobos. We get there to Cousin Ida Mae's house around 7:30. And we're in the truck. I get out of the truck and I pull out the cooler and the cups, and I walk to the tailgate, and my dad and I meet each other at the tailgate. My dad has the straw hats, and he plops my straw hat on my head and he plops his on his head. And we're standing there, we're sipping the water, and he says, Lord have mercy, Stanley. Lord have mercy. The weatherman said it's going to be 101 degrees today. Whoa, that's some hot weather we having today. Probably the hottest it's been all week long. And I say, yeah, Dad, it's 101. But wait a minute, it's going to be even hotter than that when you place the humidity factor. So I'm thinking, golly, maybe what he's going to do, since it's so hot, maybe he's going to say, Stanley, let's just pack it up and go home. But I know my dad ain't even going to do that, because my dad loves this stuff. But there's another reason why I want to work with him. My dad and I weren't very close. And I didn't like to do the things that he liked to do. I didn't like construction. I didn't like hunting. I didn't like fishing like my little brother did. And they were always doing something together. And I wanted to have that relationship with my father. Even though I didn't want to do what he did, I did it anyway, hoping that maybe that would bring us closer together. So we get ready to go up on the scaffold, to climb up the ladder, to get on the scaffold, to put those planks underneath those overhangs. Before we start, my father says, digs his hands in his pockets, and then he pulls them out, and he says, Lord have mercy, Stanley, I forgot my pocket watch. And I am so sorry, because we need to keep track of the time, because we need to make sure you get back home early enough so you can get ready to go to Bible school. And I don't want your mama giving me the evil eye, because you got me home late. So I said, Dad, don't worry about it. I have my watch. I can keep track of the time. Oh, yeah, that's right. So good. So make sure you keep track of the time so we can get home on time. We climb up the rickety ladder onto the scaffold, and he tells me what we're going to do. He says, just like we talked about, I'm going to hold up my end of the plank, and I want you to stay behind me, and I'm going to hold it right up under the overhang, and I'm going to nail, and when I nail, I want you to hold on to the plank, and then after I nail one section, then I'm going to step back, and I want you to step back with me, and we'll do the same thing. And we'll stop hammering, you step back with me, and we'll do that until the plank can stand on its own with no support from us. You got that? Got that? Yeah, I got it. So we do that, we get that first plank up there, and I feel like, yeah, I can do this. Maybe I'm not the weakling that everybody says that I am. So we did it. I did it. I'm feeling so good about myself. Then we continue to do it. I'm holding, he's hammering. I'm holding, he's hammering. I'm doing okay, but I'm starting to get just a little bit tired. My legs are getting a little bit tired. My arms holding it up, those planks up are starting to play out on me. So it's time to take a water break. So my dad gets the water up at the other end of the scaffold, and then while he's getting it, my hands drop to my knees, and I'm just trying to catch my breath. And after he turns around, when he turns around to bring the water back, I push myself up and pretend that I'm ready to go. And he said, "You ready to go? You ready to go?" And in my mind, I'm thinking, hell no. But in my head, and what I tell him is that, yes, sir, I'm ready to go. So we work, and it's lunchtime. We've been working for 4.5 hours, and it's time for us to eat lunch. Thank you, Jesus. It's time for us to eat lunch. So we climb down the ladder, we eat our lunch, and then we go back up and we start again. So we're working, we continue to work, and at one point we pick up the plank, and I just can't do it anymore. You know how it is sometimes when you're trying to hold on to something for dear life. You're trying to hold on to it, and everything starts to give way. Everything gave way on me, and I just dropped it, and it fell over the railing of the overhang, and it toppled to the ground. And I got I was on my knees and holding my hands, and I just got up a little bit, and I said, "Dad, I am so sorry. I'm so sorry that I did this, that I dropped the plank." And he walked over to me, and he said, "Boy, that's all right. You're doing the best you can. Now, Let's see if we can get some more done, maybe get some more done by 4 o'clock. If you feel like you can do it. Yes, sir. Yeah, I can do it. I can do it. So I stand up and we start working again. But I think to myself, you said you can do it, but you can't do this anymore. You can't do this anymore. So I decided I'm gonna have to do something to get the hell out of here. So I think, he forgot his pocket watch. And I have my wristwatch. So when he's not looking, then I turn around and I change the hands on my watch from 2:45 to 3:45. Then I walk over to him and say, look, Dad, it's 3:45. We have to go home so I can go to Bible school. You sure? 3:45? Don't seem like we've been here that long. Yeah, Daddy, we have been here this long. It's 3:45. It's 3:45. Well, actually, it's 3:46 now. So we have to go. We got to go. Well, all right. If you said so, let's go on and get down from here. Let's go home. So we're in the truck, all going home. In the truck, going home. And I'm thinking, boy, you dumber than dumb. You dumber than dumb because not if, but when he finds out, he is going to whip your ass. So I'm thinking, he whipped me when I was 5 years old, and it was such an awful whipping that I said I would never do anything again to make him that mad at me. And then I was thinking, boy, you just did. So we get home, and he gets out of the car, he's in front of me, and he's going up the steps, the outdoor steps, onto the stoop, and goes into the kitchen. I'm following behind him, and he did what he always does. He went over to the kitchen, in the kitchen, and he went over to the cabinets, and he reached in to get a couple of glasses so that we could get some ice cold water. And then my mom comes in, and I can see it on her face. She is getting ready to say, why are you all home so early? But she doesn't have to do that because my dad comes, he's at the holding the glasses, and then, let me tell you something, the stove is right under the cabinet. And on the stove in the center is a clock. So he comes down, his hands come down, and he looks at the clock. And then he looks at me. Then he looks at the clock again just to make sure. And then he looks at me. Stanley Cornelius Trent, did you change the hands on your watch so that we could come home early? I couldn't lie to the man. So I just put my hands behind my back and I just said, Dad, yeah, I did it. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Bernice, you hear what that boy said? He changed the hands on his watch so that we could come home early. I knew what was going to happen. I knew I was going to see the belt sliding through his belt loops. I knew he was going to just really, really give me a whipping that was worse than the one he gave me when I was 5 years old. But that's not what he did. He held out his hands. And he took one hand and pointed and rubbed it on the other hand, and he said, look, Stanley, look at the cuts, and look at the scrapes, and look at the calluses, and look at the dirt under my fingernails. He said, boy, I'm gonna make sure you go to college, because you don't like getting your hands dirty. And that's what he did. That's what he did. He worked 2 jobs to help me get through undergrad. He and my mom second mortgaged the house so that I could get my master's degree. And he was not here. He passed away in 1986. So he was not here in 1992 when I walked down the lawn and earned my PhD in education from the University of Virginia. But I believe that he was still there watching over me. I still believe that. So one night, when actually I was writing this story, and I thought about all the things that happened in our lifetime, and I thought about my dad, and I started talking to him. And I said, Dad, you know what? No, I didn't want to be like you. I didn't want the cuts and the calluses and the scrapes and the dirt under my fingernails. But you know what? I realized something. I realized that there was a synchronous brilliance that we had that I wish I had known about. I wish I had understood that with this brilliance, we were able to create beautiful things with our hands. Yours hard, mine soft, yours with a hammer, and mine with a pen. And for that, I'm just so grateful. And with the money I earned from working with him, I bought myself a pair of Converse All-Stars. Thank you.
Okay, how about another hand for our wonderful storytellers? That was so fun. So we didn't get to hear everybody's stories from each other until tonight. So that was a real treat. So I should have mentioned earlier that we had faculty, staff, students, and alum represented tonight. And we had every department represented. And so hopefully you got a good sense of our community. Thank you for listening. Thanks again to Brooke Pucci. Yay. For pulling this all together, to Laura Hawksworth and Tiffany Tolson and Julia Carino, who also helped tremendously with this event. I hope that you're all sitting here thinking of your own stories so that when we come back, see, I see some people thinking about their stories, Jen Pease, and you'll be back next year for our second annual Double Take. I left it all on the court. And we have some refreshments in the bag, so hopefully everyone will stay and mix and mingle for a little while. Thank you.